It's a real diverse, and so then we can go and we can talk about the DIA, but the issue is then our listeners could go to michigan.gov and go to History, Arts, and Library /HAL, and then type in the museums, and those will pop up.
All that stuff. And quickly, it's Michigan History Magazine. We manage all of the state records. Many people don't know that.
Wow.
For everybody. We provide 24-hour delivery if you want a record back. We set all the retention schedules. We work with local states, local units of government and retention schedules. When records have lived their normal life, we get all the records then and decide what needs to be salvaged, and then we are also the state archives and decide what has historical value. We also have a role in Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary at Alpena. We have the state responsibility, so that's all of that.
Wow.
History, arts, and
so the tentacles of this are just absolutely amazing because of the four sort of substructures that go into this whole area.
It's a big operation.
Yeah. So let's go back, because we talked a little bit about the Makaka areas and these base organizations that have been so much an important part of the cultural history of our state. Interlochen obviously has been a big issue. Now that is not considered like an anchor organization.
Yes,
is it considered an anchor? Okay.
Well,
so what are the other ones?
Yeah. Well, we have 4 tiers of anchor. You started out with the DIA. They would be in that top tier. Just like the Detroit Symphony Orchestra and the Henry Ford would be in that top tier. And I'm not equipped to take you down through each one, and I don't remember whether Interlochen is a 2, 3, or whatever.
4, right.
I know it's not a 4, but it's either a 2 or a 3. But way up in the Upper Peninsula, something called Whitefish Point, the Shipwreck Society. They are, I'm sure, a Tier 4 anchor organization. I'm guessing that the Denos in your community is an anchor organization. And we call them anchors because we believe they represent the infrastructure of arts and culture. And they're not like some local arts agency that does a festival and that program is over and it's not as permanent. It's, it doesn't form a part of the foundation, okay? And the state then believes with the Arts Council that we need to support and maintain this infrastructure, which is so important. Okay.
And so our area that is important from the state is that even in these tough budget times, how do we come up with a way to fund these? Which is, we had a debate on, checkoffs, and I'm very supportive of trying to get something worked out for this organization through the arts and culture grants. I know Senator Thomas from the city of Detroit has also been pushing on that to try and come up with other funding mechanisms because of the importance. Now, we talk a little bit about the whole issue of these anchor organizations. Can you relay, we've been talking about cultural tourism has been one of the topics, has been sort of on the genre recently. How does that fit in with the DIA or an Interlochen or a Whitefish Point?
Sure. Well, we believe that cultural tourism represents an opportunity for every single community in Michigan. And my bias is that there are some places, particularly in rural Michigan, that are going to be very hard pressed to locate a new industry. It's not likely. So you got to work with the assets that you have. And up north, where you and I are from, many times it's our natural resources that are a huge asset that we utilize. And I believe there are numerous places in Michigan where tourism is not a second cousin, but it's the most important business. And as strong an industrial base as Traverse City has, I'm going to almost guess that your tourism business is number 1. Yeah. Was that right?
I would say that that is correct. Tourism is number 1. Right. And the same thing at Petoskey, when you start looking at Crooked Tree is such an important, and Bayview and what's going on in that area too.
So we use the same term again as anchors. These cultural organizations are literally anchors in the community, and I like to use the analogy of if you and I were building a mall, if we were the developers, the first thing we would do is line up the anchor stores, right?
Sure. Yep.
And then that would attract others because they know there would be synergy, and those anchors would draw a lot of people, and then some of that business would spill off to the others. Well, I think of it the same way in culture. Let's go to the DSO as an example.
Right.
Been a great effort to restore Woodward Avenue. On Woodward Avenue is the DSO. And they not only completely redid Orchestra Hall,
Yeah.
but they built an office complex. So now they're in business also, and businesses like to locate next to a great cultural organization, a good neighbor.
Sure. Yep.
And I sat down early on, I'm sure 6 years ago, and talked to the leadership there, and they brought in the former vice president of GM, who led all the fundraising for about $150 million for Orchestra Hall. And we were sitting just like you and I are. And he said, Bill, I can tell you that more than half of the people who contributed to the rehab of Orchestra Hall did so not because they'd ever been in there, but they saw it as an economic driver for Woodward Avenue.
Right.
And it's had tremendous influence. I use that as an example so often that the director and the president of the Michigan Opera Theater in Midtown said, Bill, I'm tired of you touting the DSO. When you come down for a show, I want you to come down early and I'll show you our economic impact. So he took me out on the street. On the side street, there's a street called Broadway. It's 6 blocks long. He was able to point out 3 restaurants that were located because of the boom of the Michigan Opera Theater. It was in the vicinity where the J.L. Hudson store was, and Hudson's had a parking garage. The Michigan Opera Theater bought that structure, built a new parking structure to meet their needs and for all of the other business in Midtown. Terrific example of cultural economic development. I'm leading a project in West Michigan in Lake County, a little African American community called Idlewild.
Yes.
Okay. I don't want to be cynical, but the chance of Idlewild in Lake County getting an industry is very, very slim. But they've got a great natural resource. That's why they call it Lake County. And they've got a tremendous cultural resource in the heritage of Idlewild. When you look at great black musical stars, it's like a hall of fame that came through Idlewild. So we're working with them and saying, okay, how are you going to take that cultural resource and capitalize on it to drive the economy? Well, and we're doing a strategic plan now. I'm sure it's going to be creating a cultural tourism destination. And if they can restore, we've identified at least 50 structures of significance that we hope to restore. And you bring back some of that music heritage and that historic preservation, and people from all over will want to visit it because they've read about it, and that kind of approach can happen all over. An area that we've worked on a lot is Michigan's maritime heritage, and it's certainly involved where you live and heavily involved the district that you serve. And it's all about, in our mind, creating a destination. So you've got enough critical mass of whatever you're trying to sell that's cultural and heritage that people will actually plan a trip to spend a couple of days in the area. So we organized 4 of those regional maritime heritage districts, including one from Ludington to the Straits, which takes in a lot.
Sure.
And then we also had one up in the Upper Peninsula from Marquette to Sault Ste. Marie.
Oh, really?
That
Okay.
was called Echoes of the Edmund Fitzgerald,
Okay. Wow.
all along that shipwreck coast. And when you do that, then Travel Michigan basically said to me, Bill, if you'll put the product together, we'll put it up on our website
Sure.
and market it. But we're not going to just market one lighthouse by itself and one historic ship by itself. You know, it's just kind of a potpourri. Let's put the product together. Let's put the visitor destination together. So those are some of the things that we really work hard on.
That's wonderful. Now, for our listeners that are planning some summer trips, and we have such a great wealth of facilities and museums and spots, what are 5 that maybe not get as much PR as, say, the DIA or some of our other museums? What are some unique destinations that they might look at that sort of come to mind that you enjoy when you're traveling?
Well, I love to go to the Upper Peninsula. And there's a lot to do up there. They're really beginning to recapture their mining heritage, and it's really, really fun. And you get into the Keweenaw in a little place called Calumet.
Yes.
It's a wonderful place to visit. They've got a restored opera house there in addition, but you can go at Holton. You can go to the Quincy mine and actually go down in the mine. You know. Just
And so that's kind of a neat tour to do.
Oh.
And just to follow back up, we took the kids after the International Bridge Walk up at Sault Ste. Marie last summer, and then we went up to Paradise, and then went to the life-saving station up there, and then finished on down with at Tequamanon Falls. They were having just a great sort of a day event, which was dealing with lumberjacks and learning how they did all the timbering, and it was just a wonderful time to expose the girls to this sort of heritage in the state of Michigan. And I think we have a tendency to always think about, these trips that you got to go to Detroit or you got to go to Grand Rapids, and there's a lot of other sort of rural Michigan that in the summertime, and even in the winter is fun, but in the summertime is really very special.